I gotta figure out some other music because that's a funeral dirge now.
It just gets
That's
slower and slower and slower.
I know. Every time I think, okay, it's not that bad. It'll be all right this time, but no, now it sounds like crap. I
Well,
guess I try.
between the way I usually sign off the show, and with the time of year it is, and the saying that you can't trust anybody because of the smoke screen, I think you should go with the X Files music. But that's just me.
There we go. There we go. I gotta find something that's not going to get us yanked off of YouTube.
Right.
You know, Pro tip: if you make a sex tape, use Disney music on it because the YouTube algorithm will yank it off immediately. And then this is when you get the Dave Chappelle, meme that modern problems require modern solutions. We are a minute and a half into the show,
And
and I'm
we've
already
already had
talking
an
about
adult
making a
film.
sex tape. I'm talking about a sex tape. So yeah, this the funny thing about this. In all seriousness, there's a story I read. I want to say it was in Kentucky or Tennessee. Anyway, they got cop video. Anytime that a cop makes an arrest, everybody's got their cell phone out, going to fill this whole thing, and the police department is now loading Disney music on any video that somebody makes of an arrest to get it yanked off of YouTube. It's hilarious. I've never, the only thing I know that we've ever gotten yanked off of before was I played a little bit of Sweet Home Chicago, and I think it was longer than 10 seconds, and they put a flag on my thing. Copyright violation, can't have that. So, yeah.
That's been a minute ago too.
Yeah, that was after a Chicago game, I think, Chicago preseason game or something, and they pulled it off. So, yep, good to know. Um, so welcome everybody. I see Calvin, Anna, Jerry. Let's see, did I miss anybody? Chad. Welcome everybody to the pre draft edition of Under the Dome. Next week is the draft. Next Thursday night. Um, we'll find out if the Saints are going to do what everybody expects them to do and select a wide receiver and a tackle in the first round, or if they trade both picks to move up into the top 10, which I think they can't do, and or they do something unexpected and trade back down again, which I would not actually be opposed to. If you use one of the picks but then you trade down to say with the Lions and get the Lions 32nd and 34th pick. That'd be pretty interesting, only because I like the idea of having four picks in the top 50.
Yep.
That would be interesting. Yeah, Calvin's already trashing. Anybody ready for the Saints unexpectedly draft Willis and Pickett at 16 and 19? Yeah, we'll have we'll have five quarterbacks. And Donald. Welcome, Donald. So, I'm your host, Alan Ulrich, here with Sean Williams, Bob Rose, the whole crew's here tonight.
Yeah, the wrath of God is not falling from the sky in northeast Louisiana tonight.
Hey, I tell you what, for the past month, I think every Tuesday we've had severe thunderstorm warnings in Louisiana. So,
we were under tornado watch. There's actually a tornado that touched down west of here.
Dun, 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 dun. Did you see Mrs. Gulch? Yeah, I know. Well, that's less than 10 seconds. I can do that.
That's all right. You guys are dodging tornadoes. We're in our third straight day. Yeah, it's April 19th. We're in our third straight day of 30-degree temperatures and second straight day of snow showers. So apparently, Western Pennsylvania has shifted upwards towards the Arctic Circle.
that late winter, late spring, that the north is getting right now. Well, they'll make up for it in the summer. It'll be 100 and something degrees in the summertime. So
I love it.
So Bob, the big news, I guess if you call it that, today on Saints Twitter was that Jarvis Landry is going to fly into New Orleans and set up a meeting to meet the Saints. And this is kind of unusual for me. because the Saints usually don't host free agents around this time. They're locked into the mock draft thing, and it's all about calling people, making deals, and that kind of stuff. And here we're already talking about maybe signing a wide receiver. Do you think we signed Jarvis Landry?
It's hard to tell right now, guys. I do believe that there's genuine interest there. Depending on his contract demands. I mean, about 2 weeks ago, reports were coming out that Jarvis was looking for about $20 million a year, which is just flat out laughable for a player at this stage of his career. So there's no way in hell that happens if his contract demands are even close to that. But I think what's happening with Jarvis is the same thing that's happening with Quan Alexander, who met with the Jets today, and Tyrann Mathieu, who obviously met with the Saints about a week and a half ago and has met with a couple other teams. I think these teams are just talking with these free agents, but I don't think anybody significant gets signed until after the draft. They're just kind of gauging who they could have interest in if the draft doesn't unfold how they think, how these respective teams think that it might. So I'm not saying Jarvis Landry will or would not get signed, but I am saying that I would be shocked if it happens before the draft. If the Saints come out of this with without a wide receiver in their top 3 picks, which is 2 first rounds and a second, or if they come out with one, and that one is Jameson Williams, who's probably going to open up the season on the PUP list, then is when your Jarvis Landry signing might gain a little bit of steam, because he's a seasoned veteran. He wouldn't need much time to get acclimated to your system, et cetera. But like I said, I'd be shocked if anything significant happens before the draft.
Sean, do you think that the Saints sign any of these LSU players in the next week or so?
I'm kind of like Bob said. I don't see them making any roster moves prior to the draft. Like you alluded to, that's just not the way that they have always done business.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that because I think you're absolutely right, Bob. I think this is about gauging interest, get an idea of what they're looking for, get an idea of what, let them get a feel. Hey, Jarvis, we might be interested in signing you, but it's going to probably be a 1-year deal, and it's going to be for about X amount. Is this something that you could live with? I mean, do you have any other interest in other teams? Are you meeting with other teams? That kind of stuff. And maybe I get to know you, get to know the player a little bit. But yeah, I think this is all doing your homework just in case a draft doesn't fall the way you want it to. Calvin made a joke, but I can see, not quite to this level, but I can see that, the Saints would possibly take Jordan Davis and an offensive tackle in the first round, no receiver. And then in the gambling it on the second round, you probably can get a George Pickens or a Christian Watson or someone like that. Although 49 is so far away.
It is.
And then, or worst case scenario, take a quarterback in the second round. And then that means receiver not until number 99.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it 99? I forgot what number. 98. Not taking a receiver to 98. I think Saints Twitter would riot if that happened. But and I'm here for the chaos. But I mean, I think that's the case. They really would be outraged. Even though, as I remind people over and over and over again, as much as I can, Kevin White was number 7 overall pick in 2015. Amari Cooper was the first receiver off the board at 4 in 2015. Philip Dorsett went off the board in the first round. But
Laquan
Treadwell, did he go in 2015? Laquan Treadwell?
I don't know about 2015, but he was definitely a first-round pick.
Yeah, he was a first-round pick. But, then you go to, in 2015, I'm thinking specifically, Third round's Tyler Lockett. Fifth round is Stephon Diggs.
Mhm.
So, we were talking about this off the air. You've got people out there who are convinced that the draft is one round, maybe two. And anything after round 3 is a waste.
Mhm.
Even though, let's go through Saints history. Thomas Morstead, 5th round pick. Carl Nix, 5th round pick. We'll throw in a guy like Jimmy Graham, 3rd round pick. Pat Swilling, 3rd round pick.
Some guy named Colston at wide receiver was like 3 picks away from Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick of the draft.
I've done this before. Eric Martin was a 7th round pick.
Yeah.
Danny Abramowitz is a 17th round pick. Now that's back in the day, but he was a 17th round pick.
Wasn't Kamara 3rd round?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Kamara 3rd round. Yeah. Calvin just threw out Onyemata, 4th rounder. Akeem Hicks, 3rd rounder.
Mm-hmm. Armstead was a 4th rounder. Zach Streep was a 6th, 7th rounder. We could go on and on all night. Drew Brees was a 2nd rounder, although where he went would be a 1st rounder with the teams today.
Yeah.
But I'll say this. Obviously, the later the rounds are, the percentage-wise, the less chance a player has to make it big. Let alone even stick onto a roster. But you're absolutely right. Let's not pretend that if a player isn't drafted in the 1st round that they're automatically trash. Michael Thomas was a 2nd rounder. Like I said, we could go on and on.
Yeah, I just feel like there's so much pressure that fans are putting on because they're looking at that board, and here are your top receivers on the board, and these are your burners, these are your speed guys, and I'm pointing to guys that end up having very productive careers. I think in the 3rd round, I think the receiver who just led the league and was Super Bowl MVP, Cooper Kupp, was a 3rd round pick. So you don't. The board is stacked a certain way based on the way these guys played in college, and some of these guys, when they get to the pros, they were a big fish in a small pond, but when they get to the NFL, they're a small fish in a big pond. They're not that productive. That used to be the Heisman jinx. That was what we always said was about the Heisman jinx. That Archie Griffin won 2 Heisman trophies, and I'm going back in time, but I'm only bringing him up because he won 2 Heisman trophies. But Archie Griffin won 2 Heisman trophies over at Ohio State. But when he got to the NFL, he was undersized and slow. But it worked in the I just yelled, I'm sorry. It worked in the Big Ten because the defenses he was playing against were also big and slow, so you could do that. And I'm not saying obviously
that's the one thing that fans most easily lose sight of and refuse to accept is the fact that if you play college football, even at a LSU, Alabama, Ohio State, by and large, with very few exceptions, you're playing a team with 2, maybe 3 standout players on it. And when you get to the NFL, you're playing the very best at every position. There is no such thing as an automatic translation to success in this league from college.
No, and clearly you can go down the list: Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Julio Jones, receivers that did make the leap from the pros from college to the pros and were elite players. And that's the one people really remember. Everybody remembers that Drew Bledsoe was number 1 overall pick, but number 2 overall pick was Rick Meyer, who ended up being a bust. So, in the 1st round, about half those players picked are probably going to be busts because that's just the percentages. Okay. So, we're all fighting about, and I mean all in the figurative sense, but people are fighting about, I like this guy. I like Olave from Ohio State. Now I like Jameson Williams. Now I like, the kid from USC Landon. Or I think, this guy is the best and this is who we ought to take. And the reality is when they get to the pros, we don't know how they're going to react. There are some concerns.
And
I've
also,
said this.
these coaches and GMs are privy to knowledge that we are not. They've met with these guys. They know they have an idea of the makeup above the shoulders that these players are bringing with them into the league. Whether they're going to work for it the way that a Julio Jones did and a Jamar Chase did.
Well, you watch, what was it, the 2006 America's game with the Indianapolis Colts when you talk about when they brought in Peyton Manning. And Peyton Manning, they met with Peyton Manning and Ryan Leaf. And they asked one of those typical personality questions now that everybody knows not to answer the way Ryan Leaf did. But they asked Peyton they asked both of them, and Ryan Leaf was the first one interviewed. If you were the number one overall pick, what is the very first thing you would do? And Ryan Leaf thought he was being funny, but he said, I'm getting my friends, I'm going to Vegas, And Peyton Manning gave the answer, well, the first thing I would do is I'd want a copy of the roster so I could learn who my teammates are going to be. And I'd want to see an early copy of the playbook so I can learn the plays. I can know what I'm doing out there, And clearly he's the product of a former professional football player, because that's exactly what Archie did,
right?
So he knew what to say. But what that said about their personalities was, this is a worker, this is a guy who it's playtime and showtime, and in a case of a player like Deion Sanders, who probably would have said something similar back then, Deion could back it up. Ryan Leaf could not. So, it's just it's a challenge to sit there and interview these players. That's why the Wonderlic test used to be so big. It's not anymore, but why the Wonderlic test used to be so big, why personality inventory tests are so big. They want to get an idea of what kind of person you are as well as what kind of player you are. And that's what we don't, as fans, see.
No, you're exactly right. And listen, as a track coach and as somebody who breaks down film now, just like I did as a coach, I do like to watch the 40 dash at the combine. I do. I love the 3-cone drills and the jump drills, but that's not what I would be concerned about if I was a coach or a GM. Like Sean alluded to, I would be more concerned about sitting down and interviewing these players, especially in person. In today's day and age, they do a lot of video call interviews, and you could still get something from that. But that's when you're going to get at least a better feel of what's going on with the kid up here and right here, and whether they want to play for a living, whether they are going to fight to their last drop of blood for that next paycheck and for those teammates beside of them and to put a ring on that finger, all that stuff. Anybody can look good in testing, and all of us can recite plenty of examples where a guy, and I see a few potential this year, where a guy rose his draft stock to a guy that was from a guy that was talked about as maybe a day 3 pick into now he might go late first round. And there's always a team that's going to grab him in the middle of the first round and just cause everybody to go, well, that's because he tested well. Yeah, it usually doesn't work out.
Yeah. Can you think of somebody, Sean, sorry. If you can think of somebody, Sean, that you think probably elevated their stock in the combine and they kind of forgot whether or not they're a good football player? Is anybody in this draft class that you can think of that probably fits that mold?
Well, as far as raising their draft stock, I've heard really good things about Malik Willis since he was at the combine.
Mm-hmm.
As far as before, the guy, I can't remember his name right off the top of my head, the one that set the 40 record.
Is that Christian Watson?
No.
John Ross.
Yeah.
He
And
went to the Bengals.
he elevated his stock through the roof. Anybody know where he is right now, right off the top of their head? He's probably somewhere asking, "Do you want fries with that?"
No, he's still in the league. He's still in the league somewhere, but
he played with the Giants last year because it was the only long catch he had during the course of the entire season.
Anna, you ain't kidding. I got to the point I was making fun of the draft a couple years ago because of that.
That's the reason that the draft is so outrageous now, because it's a production. It's not about what it's supposed to be about.
Yeah. No, it's I can barely watch it now, because when it was Saturday and Sunday, it was worth watching because you had 3 rounds on Saturday and the final 3 rounds on Sunday, or 4 rounds on Sunday, but it was like 5 minutes, going rapid fire. Yeah. And there weren't a lot of reporters farmed out. Only several teams had that. There was only a handful of guys in the green room, and they had to fill up the time with legitimate discussions about the player's ability. Since it's gone to 3 days now, and you've got so much time now in these rounds, that it just feels like they drag it on and they're looking for stuff to talk about. The year the Twins got drafted by Seattle, the one with the guy had no hand, the kid who had no hand.
Mm-hmm.
I was ready to chop off the other hands because I was so sick of hearing that story, because they just kept playing it over and over and over. And I'm just like, I don't give a damn anymore. The first couple of times I'm like, oh, that's pretty impressive. After a while, I'm sick of hearing it, And here we go. Let me get drafted. I got a blind dog, 8 kids. I take care of myself when I was 8. A 3-legged goat and a pacemaker. Calvin, it reminds me, I don't do it too often in this show, but it's a Seinfeld moment. You remember the one where George Costanza was trying to get that apartment, and he had to compete against a guy who survived, the Andrea Laura? I think it's like, Andrea Laura, that's it? So he's just telling the whole story about his life. And he says, oh, then I bought the wedding cards that, with the bad glue on it that killed my fiance. And the people are crying, and the guy's like, he's like, yeah, you just have to live my life. So, yes, if I got a George Costanza story, I probably would watch that one. That would be good.
No, but Christian Watson is a good example of a player. Now, to be fair, that he was extremely productive at the FBS level. Yeah. Christian Watson jumps to mind. Jalen Petrie, who I happen to like as a prospect, but Jalen Petrie is another guy, the defensive back from Baylor. Those are 2 guys. Jeremiah Moon, the linebacker from Florida, tested real well, but only has a year and a half of experience at linebacker after moving from defensive end. Can anybody say Zach Vaughn? Those are guys that improved their draft performances significantly. And I'll go back to Watson. Watson also exhibited himself well in the postseason games and practices too, against players. So these weren't just the underwear Olympics. Watson, I think, is a player, but there's no doubt he elevated his stock by testing through the roof.
Oh, the poster child for that is Malamu. God
Mamula.
Dang it! Yes, Mike Malula. The Eagles drafted him.
Yeah,
I knew I was going to butcher this dude's name. But he was a great example because he ran the fastest time. He did a great cone drill. He showed tremendous strength, great leaping ability, and people forgot whether or not he could actually play football. And the Eagles drafted him in the first round, and they put him out there, and he was undersized. He struggled. He ended up being out of the league in no time. Yeah, 6'4" cornerback that ran the 4.2. Well, hell, the Saints drafted a few players like that. Zach Bond's one of them, but Stanley Jean-Baptiste, tested really well, but he couldn't play football.
Yeah.
Chris Connolly. Yep, Chris Connolly. I like Chris Connolly too, but he was one of those guys. It's I'm worried that he's Stephen Hill 2.0. Who are you talking about? I wonder who Matt's talking about. He said Hill, but I don't know who he's talking about there.
No,
it doesn't come to mind either. But basically, I feel that's that way about Malik Willis. I have, and I could be totally wrong on this. I'm not going to say that I'm right, but Malik Willis just screams to me, stay away, don't draft him, because Stephen Hill from Georgia Tech. Okay, all right.
That's the kid they were comparing to Demaryius Thomas that came out like 2 years after Thomas. Okay.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, he was supposed to. Yes. Okay. I know who you're talking about now. Yes. Okay. It took me a while to put those together but yeah, he played at Liberty, and I grant you it's a small school, and I've said this plenty of times, it's just his fundamentals at football just are not there. I don't see it. He needs a lot of coaching. He can run, and he's got a strong arm. He can throw the ball 80 yards in the air, just a flick of the wrist. But can he play quarterback in the NFL? I don't know.
Right.
And
everybody seems to be following the trend, looking for the next Jackson.
Well, yeah, they are comparing Lamar Jackson, but it's almost like and I said this before, he reminds me of a poor man's Michael Vick. He's fast like Michael Vick. I think he's got a strong arm like Michael Vick, but he's not. And I don't think Michael Vick was very accurate. But he's not even as accurate as Michael Vick. And Auburn had a coaching change, and they wanted to go to different things. But the fact that Bo Nix beat you out basically, or chased you off campus, so you went to Liberty. It's hard for me to justify taking a guy like him in the first round, but because Josh Allen had the success he had, because Trey Lance got drafted very highly, people are going to gravitate to those positions, thinking we can run RPO offense until we can get him to be a better passer. I mean, the Eagles basically did that with Jalen Hurts running the RPO game. He's not a very good passer, but we're able to do enough to get to the playoffs with him. Yes, everybody's looking for the next Josh Allen. They are, and it's if he'd come out of Auburn playing the way he played, I probably would feel more confident in his abilities. But now,
it's a giant screaming, flashing red light to me that he transfers down.
Yeah.
That just I don't care for that.
And I know we don't want to spend a whole lot more time on quarterbacks because we've been talking about them so much. But another thing that sticks out to me when I look at a quarterback prospect is, did a guy improve or did he regress? Before I go any further on this, this is the guy who openly said many times that Mason Rudolph would be the best quarterback out of that particular quarterback draft class. So, like you said before, Alan, none of our, regardless of how high you are in this profession, or how much film you watch, or how legitimately good an eye you have, you're going to be wrong occasionally. But what I see is when I look at a guy like Sam Howell from North Carolina, I don't even understand why that kid is in a first-round conversation, because everybody talked about the kind of regression that Spencer Rattler had last year. At this time last year, everybody was saying, "Oh, Spencer Rattler is going to be the number 1 overall pick in the 2022 draft, and Sam Howell is going to be the number 2 overall pick." Well, everybody talked about the regression Rattler had. Howell was at least as bad. I mean, he just looked absolutely clueless out there. There's going to be a team, just like because he's a quarterback, there's going to be a team that overdrafts him as well.
I can't think of a better example than Mitchell Trubisky, speaking of North Carolina.
Yeah.
Mitchell Trubisky goes number 2 overall. The Bears traded up to get him. And, of course, the 49ers were laughing at him, but the 49ers picked a bust, too, who I happen to like. I did like Solomon Thomas, but he ended up being a bust. But, yeah, you realize you passed up Patrick Mahomes to draft Mitchell Trubisky. And Deshaun Watson to draft Mitchell Trubisky. So, that really that's just it, and
if this was a cartoon, this would be the point where their face turns into a jackass and it goes,
yep.
Right?
Yep. I mean, it just shows you what people know. I can I wasn't a big fan of, believe it or not, I wasn't a big fan of Patrick Mahomes either, because I was worried coming out of Texas Tech that he was a University of Houston kind of quarterback. University of Houston.
I watched him play
of the 80s.
Being a Oklahoma fan, I watched several Big 12 games that Mahomes played in. I saw him play one night. He played for Tech, and they played the University of Oklahoma, and Baker Mayfield was on that team, and Samaje Perine, and that kid at wide receiver. Mahomes attempted 80-something passes that night and averaged 10 yards each. He passed for over 800 yards in that game and lost.
Yeah, and you see, that kind of shit scares me because I remember Andre Ware and David Klingler just putting up Madden kind of numbers. You playing Madden with the computer on basic kind of numbers. At University of Houston with the run and shoot, and man, everybody wanted to put in a run and shoot. And then the Detroit Lions drafted Andre Ware, and then even brought in Mouse Davis to run what they called the silver stretch. That was the offense. They were going to run the silver stretch. We're going to run the run and shoot. We're going to do what we did at University of Houston. And it was a disaster. It was a complete disaster because the defenses are too fast. The defensive ends are too strong. The linebackers are too fast. That if you don't have a tight end helping you tackle, your offensive line can't block these guys. That your quarterback's going to get killed. You can go and Houston Oilers proved it. You can go between the 20s all day long and just light up the yardage. But when you get inside the 20s, you can't run the football, and they start cracking down on those receivers. You have a hard time scoring. And Houston, I have to give them credit. The Oilers probably did it best. The second best team to run and shoot kind of offense was our good buddies over there in Atlanta. The Atlanta Falcons did a pretty good job with the run and shoot.
Yeah, they did.
But that was strictly a college offense, and it's
really,
just so.
You could say a high school offense, because name a college offense that ever really even contended for a national championship when the run and shoot was popular. You can't.
No. No, Andre Ware was from University of Houston. The kid you might be thinking of from Tulane.
Golly.
He played for Tampa. He was a quarterback at Tampa.
God, I cannot believe I forgot that kid's name.
Let me see something here. I'll remember it in a second, but I'm gonna Google it anyway.
While you're looking that up, and Sean, I'll start with you. Before we move on to another position, and eventually wrap it up before your boy falls asleep, is there a quarterback that people aren't talking enough about?
Not one that I'm aware of.
Sean,
but, I don't follow it as closely.
Yeah,
the prospect stuff as closely as you do. And due to my job, I don't very often get to watch college games.
Is there one you're thinking of?
There's one or two names, but we talked about them before. But yeah, I'll throw the question to you, Alan. Is there a quarterback that people aren't talking enough about?
It's hard because the quarterback position is so oversaturated right now because there aren't enough quarterbacks in the league, legitimate starting quarterbacks in the league. You've got if there were a couple, I would talk about Carson Strong and Desmond Ritter are probably the two names that come the most as guys that aren't really talked about. The fact that Sam Howell's talked about over Carson Strong, it stands out to me. But Carson Strong, I'm afraid, is what the media doesn't like in quarterbacks anymore. They don't like the standard pocket passer with the strong arm. And I think, him playing at Nevada and being a pocket passer, really kind of pushes him down.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he is, going to be even a journeyman starter. I don't know what kind of quarterback he would be, but that's one guy I can think of. But Ritter is somebody who gets very little. It's always Willis, Pickett, and probably Matt Corral is probably the three that get talked about the most. Ritter's kind of the guy. Not many people put him in the first round, if at all. Most of them put him in the second round. And I don't know.
Well, if he's already a pure pocket passer, I would tend to believe that would work to translate to the next level him more than the rest.
Yeah, but he went to a small school, Nevada, so you've got a learning curve behind him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Calvin's just pushing it about Matt Corral. But yeah, Carson Strong would have to show incredible accuracy, really, to get the attention he deserves. Right now, he's a kid with a big gun, and he kind of fireballs those short passes, and that's not a good thing. He doesn't have that touch. I like him. I like a lot of the tape I see of him, but he's not the kind of kid that's going to come in. He's a project. He's somebody you have to work with for a while.
Yeah, I'll agree with. And I like Carson Strong too. I think he's probably a third-round pick. Might even slip into day 3.
Yeah.
But you're right. If he goes into the right system and gets a legitimate chance, he's one of those guys that will very quietly latch on to a backup job. And if the starter goes down, I could see him being the type of guy to come in and really light the place up for 6 or 8 games. And then all of a sudden people talk about him. He needs to be signed as a free agent, or someone deals a bunch of picks to trade him and make him a starter. And we've seen flip a coin at that point whether he has success.
Yeah, whether he turns to a legitimate starter like a Ryan Tannehill, or does he become a Scott Mitchell?
Exactly. And those were the exact 2 names I was thinking about too.
Yeah.
As far as Ritter and Corral, I'll disagree with you slightly, because I think I've been hearing Ritter get a lot of late push lately. For a late first-round pick, anywhere from the Steelers at 20 on down. I personally think he'll still end up in the second round because he's a project too. But early on, yeah, I don't believe that people were talking about him enough. Now, within the last couple of weeks, I don't think people were talking about Corral enough. As far as quarterbacks go, I mean, he's still going to get the pub. But it's funny, yeah, everybody overdrafts quarterbacks because people are so desperate for a big name quarterback.
Well, you have to have one to win at this level.
Well, right. But I got into it. A guy posted a poll on Twitter earlier today, and he said if you were the NFL GM, which of these two quarterbacks would you choose, Baker Mayfield or Kenny Pickett? And I forced myself into adding option C. I said I choose option C, jumping naked head first onto a thumbtack. Which got a lot of laughs, and he follows me, but I think he's a fan of another team. He replied back. He said, "No," he goes, "I'm not talking about the Saints specifically. I'm just talking about any GM." And I said, and I'm answering as if I was any GM. I would happily jump. I would jump onto that thumbtack with a smile on my face if I didn't have to go with Baker Mayfield or Kenny Pickett. But then I went on to say, I'm like, but you know what? I still think I'd take either one of those guys over Drew Lock, Mitchell Trubisky, Jared Goff. I named off like 7 quarterbacks. Those were the top 3. And then it hit me. I'm like, I just named damn near a third of the league. That I would take a Kenny Pickett or a Baker Mayfield over their current starters. That tells you today's day and age of the NFL. And Baker Mayfield, number 1 overall pick. Kenny Pickett is going to be a top 10 pick. So that's today's day and age of the NFL. So desperate for overhyped quarterback talent.
It's the hardest position to draft because so much of a quarterback's ability is here, not here in the arm. It's all about what kind of person you are in here. How do you handle the noise? How do you handle pressure? Do you get better with pressure on you? Do you handle adversity? Those are the things that, how do you handle the personalities in the locker room and keep them happy? All those things. And I think that's where the issues come for a lot of quarterbacks. I think in Jared Goff's case, he was in 1 overall pick too. I think in Jared Goff's case, he doesn't have this. It's not that he's dumb.
No,
that's what people misunderstand. When you say you don't have it up here, it makes they're all stupid. He's not stupid.
No.
He just doesn't handle things well. He's not.
Well, that goes right back to what we were talking about earlier. When you're in college, when you're a college quarterback in a program, you're a rock star. Everybody wants to be your friend, and you're probably one of the most popular guys on campus. And then you get thrust into a situation where everybody on that field has been in that position.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that gets thrown at you as a quarterback that you have to be able to handle and overcome. That if your personality is such that, I can roll with it. That was Aaron Brooks's problem. That was Steve Walsh's problem. Aaron Brooks had a very lackadaisical, hey, whatever happens kind of thing. And he wasn't a leader. And that angered a lot of fans, the smiling after interceptions. Well, that's his personality of just, hey, it happens. I'm going to go back out there and get it next time. But that pissed off a lot of fans. Steve Walsh, very distant, very aloof, was not the guy who got in with his teammates and did things. He was the quarterback. He was going to study and things like that, but very distant. So, that didn't fit that locker room. That's why Bobby Hebert was the starter and Walsh was the backup. It's just, that's the kind of stuff that, that you don't know until you know. And this is what we talked about in the beginning, interviewing, how well do these guys interview? And you come up with all kinds of personality questions so you can figure out their personality for the team. Speaking of which, okay, so as always, we started the show talking about Jarvis Landry. People are obsessed with LSU players coming to the Saints. I'll ask both of you. Start with you, Bob. Can you envision a particular LSU player that could get drafted by the Saints this year?
No. Next question. Listen, I love Stingley, the cornerback. He's going to be long gone by 16. And B, the Saints have far more pressing needs. Not that I would not mind if they got their hands on a Stingley or an Ahmad Gardner from Cincinnati. But when you have Marshawn Lattimore and Paulson Adebo and Bradley Roby as your third damn cornerback, you got to look elsewhere, guys. Outside of that, I think Damone Clark, the linebacker, looks like a special teamer at best. The guy that keeps jumping up in my mock drafts midway through day 3 is Cordell Flott, the cornerback, the other cornerback. Flott, like most LSU players, Flott is an elite athlete that is a willing special teamer and has some traits to work with. So if they're going to draft an LSU player, I would not mind at all if a guy like Cordell Flott ended up being a New Orleans Saint midway through day 3. He's a special teamer. He adds depth. But as far as using a significant pick on one this year, absolutely not.
Sean, I'm going to ask you.
Same answer.
I'm sorry, guys. A similar question. But anybody from Louisiana Tech that's in this draft, usually you find them right, and you shoot their name at me right away.
I really don't think so. This past year has been a transitional year, getting away from Coach Crap.
Coach Crap? Holy cow! I played with
his dad coached at Notre Dame.
Okay.
I'm drawing a blank again. His dad coached at Notre Dame in South Carolina.
Bowden.
Lou Holtz.
Holtz. His son was the coach at Tech for several years. I think they went to between 5 and 7 straight bowls and won all of them. But he left, and they're kind of in a state of flux at the moment.
Well, UL they had some players last year. In fact, one of the offensive linemen was the highest drafted UL player in school history. He went in the second round. I think it was the kid who went to my daughter would know this off the top of her head. She's working tonight. I think it's the kid who went to the Dolphins. And of course, the running back for the 49ers this past year, that was a UL kid, Eli Mitchell. You've got some good. The Steelers got a good player over there, Dotson on their offensive line. The guy I liked a lot, and their coach has just gone on to University of Florida. So, I don't know if that'll keep they'll keep recruiting that level of talent now that Coach Napier is over there in Florida. But still, they got a kid, Max Mitchell. He's an offensive tackle. Yeah, he's an offensive tackle. He's not up there in the top 10, but he's right there. He's probably, if you do, I think Max will probably go in the 3rd round. He won't be there at 98. He'll probably go in the top part of it. But Skip Holtz was the coach's name.
Skip Holtz.
Yeah.
And Bobby Bowden's son is now the coach at Louisiana Monroe.
Yeah. And
he's done some amazing things with that program just in 1 year.
Good.
They finished with a better record than LSU this year.
So did UL Lafayette, but we don't talk about that right now.
Nah. That other Louisiana school.
But Max Mitchell's a guy I think could go in the bottom of the second, top of the third, and is a good tackle. And I'm in agreement with both of y'all. I don't think there's an LSU player that will get drafted this year by the Saints. This is not a good LSU draft class. That's another school that's in transition right now. I like Derek Stingley, but I also think he's going to get overdrafted because he comes from LSU. You know, I just don't see anybody in a position of need. There's no great LSU receivers coming out in this draft. No great LSU tight ends, although I can't think of a great LSU tight end since probably
Brian Kitchen.
Brian Kitchens. I was thinking further back than that, but I can't really think of a great LSU tight end that came out. You know, and or a great offensive tackle. I just don't see it.
I think there's an argument to be made for Lyle.
No. I mean, I'm talking about this year. In this
draft. This year. Okay.
Yeah. No. If until Joe Burrow, the best LSU quarterback in the NFL was Burt Jones. That's going back a ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just don't see the local products coming out. In Tulane football, I saw Donald as a Tulane football. Tulane's another school that's in transition right now. I think they've got some good players on there, but I think it's just going to be a bit of a challenge for them.
King.
What's that?
King.
Yes, I said Sean King. Sean King was the guy.
You guys want to talk about, and I'll shift you just a brief second. Tulane football and a kid to watch. Come training camp as long as he's healthy is Jalen McCleskey. McCleskey was a transfer. He only played at Tulane a season, I think. He transferred from Oklahoma State. A smaller, undersized guy, but expert route runner, real quick with the ball in his hands. I truly believe he was well on his way to making this roster last year before he got hurt and put on IR. So if you're looking for a kid from Tulane to make some noise, somebody that's already in the NFL, watch Jalen McCleskey as they get towards mini camp and training camp.
There's a lot that kid for you, Kenneth Dixon.
Yeah.
But okay, so the last thing I wanted to bring up tonight was let's talk a little bit about our division rivals. We've kind of beat the Saints up for a long time, but Carolina has no quarterback. Atlanta doesn't really have a quarterback. Atlanta doesn't have much of a team at all. No. They have a lot of holes. And Tampa Bay is back because you've got Tom Brady back. Where do you see our three division rivals going in the first round? Bob, I'll start with you. Where do you see Atlanta and Carolina going?
I'll go back of the draft to front because I think starting with Tampa Bay is easy. They just drafted Kyle Trask last year, and I don't think Brady comes back if he even has an inkling that the Tampa will draft a quarterback in the first round. I think Brady only came back because he was waiting to see if Tampa kept many of their free agents in house, and they did. So I think that Tampa is going to identify. They're going to go BPA, best player available, and it would not surprise me one bit if that player ended up being a interior defensive lineman. Because they're getting a little long in the tooth there. Or gave Brady another wide receiver. Godwin's coming off an ACL. Evans is still solid, but they don't have much after that. So I think Tampa Bay, all things being equal, and if their draft board evens out, I see Tampa Bay going, with a wide receiver, a big play guy like Jahan Dotson. Maybe this is where George Pickens, slips into late first round, a down the field guy, to take the top off and open up space underneath for Evans and Godwin.
Okay. Sean, how about Atlanta? What do you think? Atlanta's got so many needs.
Yes, they do. They, as someone just alluded to it in the chat. They have no running back. They have no wide receiver, which works out fine because they don't have a quarterback to throw to a wide receiver.
Yeah.
But knowing Atlanta and their draft strategy as of late, they'll probably draft Calvin's three-legged blind goat that's smiling.
You know, I think I retweeted it last night or yesterday. The Falcoholic, who I highly recommend everyone follow. You've got to follow the Falcoholic because he's a Falcon fan, so you have to take that with a grain of salt. But because they lose so much, his Twitter feed is hilarious because these people are so upset. Their questions always, why do I give these people so much of my life? Why? Like I said, his pin tweet is, being a Falcons fan is like riding a roller coaster with a terrible safety record. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. I mean, but yeah, I think with that team, and Falcoholic shared this the other day. Now I just lost my damn train of thought. I apologize. Oh, they're talking about the 2017 draft. 2017 draft selected 30 Pro Bowlers in that draft class. I think it was like 16 All Pros out of that draft, and all these, three defensive, offensive. I think 3 players of the year, 2 defense, 1 offensive player of the year, and all he wrote was, and the Atlanta Falcons have 0 players on their roster from the 2017 draft class.
Wow.
And you think about the New Orleans Saints 2017 draft class, which is, I'm not even going to argue with it anymore because I think you're probably going to get a Hall of Famer out of this draft class. But, this is the greatest draft class the Saints have ever put together because all 6 players that went in the first 3 rounds have all gotten huge contracts.
Mm-hmm.
Even, Trey Hendrickson, who got it from Cincinnati, and Marcus Williams, who's now getting it from Baltimore. You've got 6 players with great, 5 players, because Alex Anzalone didn't get a big contract, but 5 players with great contracts. And Alex Anzalone and Muhammad, I cannot remember his name, 6th round pick, defensive end.
From Miami.
From Miami, yeah.
I just call him Al Muhammad.
Al Muhammad, that's it.
Al caved in, and I'm always afraid it'll slip out Al Qaeda.
Yeah. So, both those guys are starters, in the league. So, you've got, that was the greatest draft class because you've had nobody who turned out to be a bust. And so that's just amazing. That's why the Saints are in the position they're in. That's why Atlanta's in the position they're in. I knew it was something like that, but yeah, I just remember him, the defensive end who got suspended and then kicked off the team, University of Miami, and he only started 1 year, and the Saints still took a flyer on him. He ended up working. So, but yeah, it's just amazing. So the Falcons need a total rebuild on that team. So, I mean, where do you see the Falcons going, Sean, with that first pick?
What pick is it?
It's 6. Yeah, let me see where they are. I thought it was 6, but I could be wrong.
I thought that's where Carolina was. Or maybe I have that reversed.
Okay, here we go. NFL draft order. I don't need a mock, but let's just say. Okay, so it's oh man, I swear. This wants to, Google wants to try and be helpful, and it's not. It sucks.
Well, hang tight.
No, I think I got it. Okay, it's Jacksonville, Detroit, Houston, Jets, Giants, Panthers are 6th, Falcons are 8th. Giants get the second pick from the Bears.
I could very easily see Malik Willis landing in Atlanta.
I can, if they stay put. I think they're a prime candidate to trade down because they need so many positions and they need so many picks to get them.
Yeah. It depends on where the quarterbacks start going. If the Lions pass on a quarterback, which I think they will, if they pass on a quarterback at 2, because they got a 32nd pick, because of the Goff trade, if they pass on a quarterback at 2 and take an offensive lineman, and I could see Willis, I could see the Panthers taking Pickett and Willis going to the Falcons at 8.
I agree.
Yeah, I can see that.
I can see that going on. So, the Falcons need it.
Willis is going to sell jerseys too. If you're Atlanta ownership. And Pickett, as far as Pickett being a fit in Carolina and for what Matt Rule wants to do, which is desperately save his job.
Oh my God, yes.
I can see of those two quarterbacks, Pickett's style of play, I think, fits what Matt Rule wants to do with his offense better.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, the challenge for Carolina, of course, is you've already have Sam Darnold on that team, and you owe him $28 million.
Yep.
From the Jets contract. So do you make that work or try and make that work by giving him a running back or giving him receivers or an offensive line is what he really needs?
Yeah, because they have Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore, and I love DJ. Chuba Hubbard turned out to be a steal last year, and which gives them a great set of running backs if Little Mac could stay healthy. They have a young defense. Yeah, outside of quarterback, their biggest need by far is offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. So if Carolina goes offensive line and takes a tackle right there, and Carolina's obsessed with the Saints. It's like whatever the Saints are doing, they want to go and get that guy ahead of them. And they've been doing this a lot.
Yeah.
So I can see, the rumor is Saints are interested in Pickett. Oh, we got to grab Pickett because we don't want the Saints to get him and we have to face him twice a year. Or Saints are interested in Trevor Penning. We have to go get Penning right now because we don't want to have to face him twice a year. So Carolina's going to be a wild card there. Calvin mentions the Washington team. They could use a quarterback as well. I think if one of the top guys for them falls, I think if Willis or Pickett falls to 11, you all right there, Sean?
Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, if Pickett or Willis falls, there goes Sean. If Pickett or Willis falls to 11, I think I could see the Commanders. I hate that name. The Washington team take that player. But they have other needs.
They do, and they're the latest reclamation project for Carson Wentz.
Mm-hmm.
Ron Rivera is one of those few coaches in the league that you could say year in and year out is a talented enough coach to take a bad quarterback with good talent around him deep into the playoffs. So that's where Washington parentheses Redskins and parentheses. They have McLaurin at wide receiver. They have a solid offensive line. They have some talent at running back. We know that they have a monstrous defensive line. If one of those quarterbacks fall to 11, I can actually see the Washington team fielding calls to see who wants to move into that spot. Say the Steelers at 20. And Washington would then move down and take the best available defensive cornerback and or linebacker that would be on the board to boost that defense of theirs. But yeah, I can see Washington trading down if Pickett and or Willis falls to that spot.
Well, and that was one of the things I was going to bring up. Could you see the Commanders being the team that takes Derek Stingley?
Sure,
if he's there, yeah,
absolutely.
Brian Russell asked a question: what if Hamilton falls to the Saints? Go get him, and why is Landon Collins still unsigned?
Landon Collins is overrated. A, wants too much money. B, and C, will probably be one of those players that goes somewhere rather quickly after the draft. If Hamilton, Brian, and I thought you commented on it, so I'm pretty sure you read it. I wrote about the safeties this afternoon. I do believe that that's an underrated need for the Saints. But even if Hamilton falls to 16, depending on the rest of the board, I find it hard to believe that the Saints would pull the trigger on Hamilton when there's bigger needs that need to be addressed. But again, if there's a run on receivers, Jamison Williams, Olave, Garrett Wilson, off the board. Penning and Charles Cross, the two top-rated tackles, off the board. At that point, if those 5 projects, by heads and shoulders, the top-rated at their respective positions, receiver and tackle, if they're off the board and Kyle Hamilton falls to them, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all if the Saints pulled the trigger in that scenario.
It's funny because, safety is a low-key need for the team, and I've said second or third round. I expected safety possibly going off the board. The challenge, I think, for the Saints, I think they view this is why they moved up. They made the trade with Philadelphia to move up to 16 because I feel like they felt that 18 there was going to be too many good players available at 18. So they'd rather have 2 first rounders than 1.
Yeah.
So I think if Hamilton slides to 16, there's no reason why he wouldn't slide to 19.
Agreed.
And I don't mean that he's not good. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that I think the teams at 17 and 18 aren't looking at safety at all. It's like what part of the reason why Aaron Rodgers slid the way he slid was once he got past, I think, the Saints at 13, you were now going against teams that didn't need a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And even though he was the best player available, he was going down these teams because, who's going to take him? They had all these guys had quarterbacks. They locked up for long-term deals. The Steelers had Roethlisberger. All these teams had quarterbacks. So they're not going to take Aaron Rodgers. That's why when he went to the Packers, you're like, okay, here we go. Here's a team that could possibly be interested in him. So Hamilton sliding to 16, I think you could probably get him at 19. And that would be an interesting decision. And let's say, for the sake of argument, the Saints did, the Jordan Davis at 16 and Hamilton at 19. That would be interesting. The receiving people would lose their mind.
And that might be one of them.
But that would fit Dennis Allen's profile as defensive coach. I want to have a great defensive team. I got 2 first rounders now on my great defense. I'm going to win games 9-0 right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to figure out ways to win. So do you think the Saints will pull the trigger on Drake London?
Sean?
I have no idea.
I'm
I'm not at all familiar with these players.
Oh, okay. Well, Jake London's is a very good route runner, but I think he's a little too Michael Thomas.
Yep.
And I think that's the problem when they start looking at these receivers. My issue is you're looking for a Z receiver who can play the X and play the slot, okay? And because that's how the Saints offense works.
Mhm.
So if you're going to, but you primarily want a guy who is going to take the top off of a defense to open things up underneath for Thomas, Kamara, and you would assume Trotman as a tight end, Callaway. Okay. Harris can do it, but Harris is small. You need a big receiver who can do that. So that's my hesitation on a lot of receivers right now.
Yeah.
Is this going to be another possession receiver who's a great route runner, or is this going to be a burner? So it's tough. It's tough. Yeah, that would be a hell of a defense. Damn a receiver. I knew you'd like that one, Calvin. Yeah, Davis and Hamilton would be a hell of a defense.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons that how you just laid it out, Alan. That's one of the reasons why I keep talking about Olave, Jamison Williams, and Garrett Wilson being the top three receivers on my board for the Saints and what they need for this offense right now. Yeah, people, and I'm talking to you people too that are wanting the Saints to draft 2 wide receivers in the first round. Michael Thomas didn't die. He didn't. He's not injury prone. He had one injury that ended his season and carried over into the next. He's one of the best wide receivers in the National Football League. Now, you don't necessarily need a Cliff Branch or a Bob Hayes, for you older people out there. You do want a guy to take the top off of defense that's also a polished route runner or a playmaker underneath. Jamison Williams is a playmaker underneath. Chris Olave is a route runner. Drake London will give you the routes underneath, but like you said, he reminds me too much of Michael Thomas. It's like a Michael Thomas clone. Which isn't going to make defenses respect you down the field. It's going to cause those safeties to creep up. And when you have a Drew Brees at quarterback, you're okay with that. You can still move the football. When you have a Jameis Winston, who avoided the turnovers very, very well last year, but to me has to do it for an entire season before I'll say, okay, he's put the turnover bug behind him. Mm-hmm. Until that happens, I don't want those safeties creeping up any more than absolutely necessary. So I want them to respect a deeper guy. That's why I have Olave, Jamison, and Wilson ranked well ahead of Drake London.
I think, I think a lot of people feel that Michael Thomas doesn't want to be here anymore. And of course, they want to get rid of that big contract. Yeah. So they're like, okay, well, if we can get Michael Thomas, and this is where the fantasy comes into play. We can get Michael Thomas. He has a good year. We can trade him for a number one. We get pick up an extra number one next year, and then we can do stuff. But we have 2 cheap guys that we drafted in the first round, and they're going to be better than Michael Thomas as one. That's how Saints fans' minds work. Because it's Madden. It's Madden GM, or you can click the little arrow that says force team to accept this trade.
Right.
Yeah. I would not say this. I would not say Sam Howell's a Baker Mayfield. I think Baker Mayfield's getting. I can see Sean. He's just gritting his teeth every time we talk about him. I think Baker Mayfield is getting the Cleveland treatment.
Yes.
I think he's a much better quarterback than people make him out to be.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I'm not going to say that he's on the level of a Mahomes per se.
He's a system guy.
But you look at the results, what Cleveland was when he got there, and what it eventually became with him as the starter.
Well,
I'm not saying that he is solely responsible for that. Don't misunderstand me.
Yeah.
I think people's perception of Baker coming out of college was that he was going to be Johnny Manziel. And that was just so unfair to him and inaccurate.
That was a lazy comparison to the people that did that.
And Cleveland's become such a graveyard for quarterbacks. They've taken so many quarterbacks in the first round, and they've done so many things try and fix that position, and they just cannot find the guy they need. That it's just so much easier to just dump Mayfield and just go on to the next guy, go draft another guy, and see what we're going to do with that guy.
Yeah, and that's the reason that you see it becoming, as you put it, the quarterback graveyard.
Yeah.
Yep.
You've got to give a professional athlete the chance to succeed in adversity.
And I'm not sold on any of the head coaches that Cleveland has brought in that could fix the problem. So, and again, that doesn't absolve Mayfield of his problems of his own making.
Yeah.
But part of a winning organization is you've got a great coach and a great quarterback, both on the same page.
Yeah.
And as long as you've got that, you're going to win. And I think that's the part that's missing for Cleveland.
They get rid of a coach, and then they'll get rid of a quarterback, and then they'll get rid of another coach, and then get rid of another quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
There's no time to develop that Breeze Payton type of cohesion.
No,
you need to have it immediately, or you're not, like you said, they're not going to be given the chance to develop it.
Yeah, and I think that's the issue you have with Mayfield in Cleveland. I think Cleveland went after the shiny toy, and they stupidly screwed over Mayfield and put all these stories out, wanting an adult in the room and all these other things, and they torpedo his draft, trade market. You already got $18.8 million tied up in this guy. What are you going to do now?
Not to mention the disrespect that you showed him by openly pursuing Watson.
But you can explain that as it's a business thing.
Well, I get that. But, I mean, you just made your first playoff appearance in how long?
Yeah. My thing, though, is you don't go and talk shit about him after you make the deal for Watson, because where's your trade market now? Why is a team going to trade for him? You want to promote this guy. You want to say, look, it doesn't work out for us, but we like this kid. We want to try and keep him, but we can't have two starting quarterbacks or something to that effect. But you got to talk him up to trade him, and they didn't do it.
That was so the Browns being the Browns.
Yes. So, and you're seeing this, and I'm glad somebody else brought this up. Calvin's bringing this up. You're seeing this a little bit with Kyler Murray. Yeah. Kyler Murray's seeing these quarterbacks getting paid, and he's like, hey, TikTok, I'm bringing you guys to the playoffs. I'm doing a lot of stuff for you. You brought in, just like we talked about in the beginning of the show, you brought in a quarterback who ran a certain kind of system. You brought in a coach who could coach that system, that air raid system. You got this guy in here. He's winning games for you. So do you pay him or not? And Arizona can't decide whether they want to pay this kid or not. And it's causing all kinds of drama. So, yeah, that's the sad part about this. Brian Russell's asked about Mitchie, John Mitchie the third, or Mechie, I'm sorry. Williams is just that much better than Mechie. I think Mechie is kind of the Chris Cooley to Jameson Williams being the Marshawn Lattimore.
Yeah, I mean, if that need checks out, Mechie will be a third-round pick, and he'll be a solid 3-4 receiver for a team. That's his floor. His ceiling is probably a number 2, but he's not the guy. If you're the New Orleans Saints and you come out of this draft with only John Mechie at wide receiver, I think you failed to address the problem.
Absolutely, because Mechie is a slot guy. He's not your Z receiver, and that's why I said you really need a bigger guy. I want a big guy out there, big guy who can run, and Olave fits that. I think Williamson fits that. I think there's a few of them. I think the kid from Georgia fits that.
Yeah.
Hell, the other receiver from Ohio State, who's probably going to be the first one off the board, fits that mold. So
I actually think Olave is a better route runner than Garrett Wilson, but Garrett's a little bit bigger.
Yeah. People talking about Alec Pierce right now. He's the hot name, but yeah, I don't know if Murray hasn't earned a new contract, but when you're seeing what quarterbacks getting paid, you got to play keeping up with the Joneses, or you got to cut bait with them, and that's the issue. That's the reality.
The way this league operates now, you can't go anywhere in between. You're exactly right. And given that the Saints brought in a coach and designed a system specifically for Kyler Murray, I think you have to pay him. Yep,
you do. I mean, you paid Jared Goff because he got you the Super Bowl.
Right.
You have to pay him. That's just the reality of how this league works. So I think the Murray stuff, he's going to get paid. It's just you're going to go through some drama before that happens, but he's going to get paid. I don't think that the Cardinals can't afford to trade him because they've got nothing. They got nothing behind them, and they're not getting a quarterback in this draft, and they're not going to be able to get a quarterback next year. So you're trying to. He puts asses in the seats, to be crude, and that's the whole reason why you take the quarterbacks that you take. That's why I think Willis goes to Atlanta. I don't know what Carolina does. I honestly think Carolina goes after an offensive lineman first, but you've got to put asses in the seats, because if you don't do that, then everything is just a waste of time. And that's what I think. That's what Rule sees, the writing on the wall. I have no time left for projects.
Yep.
I've got to make what I've got, what I asked for. I have to make them work and win. So, if Winston is the truth, then somebody that can consistently take the top off, but do everything that consistently, but do everything else, will be what's needed to make this team a success offensively. There's so many things, though, so many other things that we have to take into consideration beyond Winston and the receivers, and we've talked about this last week. Running back. How long does Alvin Kamara get suspended for? Tight end, offensive line. Those are the other decisions that have to really be addressed as well. And Sean, you weren't with us last week when we talked about running backs, but is there a running back out there that you like?
Again, I so rarely get to watch college football these days.
Well, I mean, I think there's a running back's really one of the low key needs that this team has. And
I agree, because you've pointed out more than once, Kamara goes out for any sizable length of time. Ingram is not going to. He doesn't have the mileage left on the tires to carry this team out of the backfield.
Exactly. I mean, you've got Bob's talked about it a couple of times. You've got a couple guys who are out there you could possibly bring in. But, Marlon Mack, someone like that, but I think for the most part, you really need to get a cheap running back in the draft. Yeah. That's really where you best spent your money. And, Calvin says, I'm all for drafting a running back anywhere after the second. I think the names to watch for are Damon Pierce out of Florida, the kid out of Alabama, because they like the SEC, Brian Robinson, I don't know about James Cook. I know he's the younger brother, Davin Cook. I'm looking for, some guys who can run between the tackles.
Here's a name to watch, and I wrote about him the other day. Pierre Strong, FCS monster. Probably going to be there in the third round, maybe slip into 98. If you're looking for a gem, for a diamond in the rough, whereas I titled the article on Easter Sunday, an Easter egg, Pierre Strong is a name to watch. But yeah, as far as from the power conferences, Damian Pierce is my favorite. But Brian Robinson is a guy. He's not going to break many long runs, but he's going to give you tough yards between the tackles.
Yeah, And I think that's just what you need right now. You don't need that home run hitter, but you need that closer. And he could also have young legs who could run while you're waiting for Camaro to come back. Low key, day 3 pick, maybe a 4th round guy, Hassan Haskins from Michigan. You know,
I talked to him twice already at the combine and again at the Senior Bowl and again at the combine. So I know they like him.
Yeah. And I mean, he's a good size. He's 6 foot 220. Probably a cheaper, younger version of the guy we just got rid of from the Vikings and played with us for a while. Ex-Raider, Latavius Murray, probably a younger version of Latavius Murray right there. So, that's the kind of back you're looking for. So, yeah. Anyway, we'll see. Next week is the draft. The first round on Thursday, second and third round on Friday, and 3rd through the 7th round on Saturday. Saturday is the longest day. Saints have 2 first round picks, 1 second round, 1 third round. So only 2 picks on Friday. And then they've got a 4th, a 5th, and as of right now, 2 6th. We'll see if that changes. I'll be surprised they keep the 2 6, honestly.
Yeah, there's always a lot of movement from this team on day 3, and it's so wildly unpredictable.
Yeah, and I expect them at least to burn 1 asset for next year. One more asset from next year to move up in this year's draft. That's just the way they operate. So we'll see how this draft unfolds. In the meantime, thank you guys for sticking with us as always. I know we went through the Smoky Man with Bob, so I know we've gone way over time. But thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you next time on Under the Dome. Good night, everybody.